Welcome to People Doing Good for Others. Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we honor and praise and celebrate folks who are making considerable contributions in our communities. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be with you today, and please enjoy these special moments. I want to thank Wilkes Communications, RiverStreet Productions, and 100.9 WIFM for their sponsorship. Our featured guest today is Travis Chrisawn. He's an employee of the state of North Carolina Department of Transportation. He's an Ashe County native, continues to live there. He also is a Christmas tree farmer. And his specialty with the state DOT is a roadside environmentalist. And these folks are involved in rest areas, involved in growing these beautiful flowers we see in the medians of our separated highways. And again, thank you for being with us, and good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning, Mr. York.
Thank you, Travis, and what an honor to have you here. And I was speaking to Mike Pettyjohn a few weeks ago. You're a division engineer from District 11, and we started talking about the flowers, and he started talking about you and Chris Southard. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time today on just telling us about growing those wonderful flowers, and just a brief biography, if you will, about your life up until today.
Well, I'm an Ashe County native. Grew up in West Jefferson, the West Jefferson area. Have always been interested in horticulture. Specifically, Christmas trees are an important asset to our community and an important part of our economy. Have some interest in that, and also grow trees myself. I'm married to my beautiful wife Tasha. We've been married for 14 years this August, and have two children, Jacob 10 and Hadley is just over a year old.
Okay.
Yes,
and you drive down each day from Ashe County, or you live near West Jefferson?
That's correct. I live in West Jefferson and I commute back and forth. That's correct.
Your interest in the DOT and pursuing that, well, no, back up a little bit and tell us about Wilkes Community College and UNC Charlotte.
Okay. I'm a high school dropout. I thought at that time, and misthought, that it was a good idea to go ahead and enter the workforce, and didn't take long to realize that was incorrect. So I dropped out in my junior year when I was 17 years old. Worked for a couple of years and decided I should go back and pursue my education and try to get my diploma. I entered into the horticulture technology program at Wilkes Community College, which was headed by Ronald Dollahide at that time, and completed a one-year program in horticulture, though because I did not have a diploma, they could not award the certification or certificate for that program. Re-entered the workforce and worked for myself as a landscape contractor for approximately 7 or 8 years. When the economy slowed down during 2007, 2008, my work also slowed down. And I looked back and reflected on life and looked at my family, and I thought, here's an opportunity for me to do something better. I have the ability to do better, to provide a better life for my family, and so I again pursued more education. I returned to Wilkes Community College, received a GED, completed an associate's degree so that I could transfer to a 4-year school,
Right.
And then transferred to UNC Charlotte. And I knew at that time I had thought about, what am I doing now, and what educational program aligns with that? What's similar? What can I draw on from my previous experience? And civil engineering had many similarities, whether it be structural aspects from retaining walls or stormwater drainage from driveways or roads. And so I chose to pursue civil engineering at UNC Charlotte. Was grateful to be accepted and completed that program approximately 3 years ago.
And so we go from UNC Charlotte to a career with the DOT. How did you get involved with the DOT, and just a little bit about being hired, Travis?
Well, I was fortunate. I applied for and was accepted into a summer intern program in 2015, which allowed me to work in Division 10. I worked out of Stanley County, which also the district I was in, District 1, covered Stanley and Cabarrus counties. So that was an interesting time where I got to learn a lot about what does DOT do, how do we interact with the public, what are expectations, and what are we doing to provide service for the public. And so that piqued my interest, and when I graduated, I then applied to a program that the department offers, Transportation Engineering Associates. And that's a program for recent graduates that come out of an engineering program, and it allows you to go through an 18 to 24 month period where you get to experience different disciplines offered within the department. Some of the basic disciplines are in construction and maintenance, survey, and then outside of that you get to pick some, they have several offerings and you get to pick 3 or 4, what do I have interest in, what would I like to experience? And it gives you some basis for picking a direction that you want your career path to take.
So since you've been with the DOT, you did the internship, you did a year and a half in that other program you mentioned, and so how about what we're doing today? When did that, are you just getting started in that, or?
I've been with the Roadside Environmental Unit for approximately 18 months.
Okay.
Previous to that, I was fortunate to accept a position as an assistant traffic engineer in Division 11. And I was in that position for a short period of time before accepting the Roadside Environmental position. So I've been here for 18 months and had hoped to learn more than I have, or hope to be more well-versed than I am. But it's a broad program, and we maintain.
So you're grateful for that opportunity. It just fits, just like you fit it and it fits you.
That's correct. I feel blessed to have been offered this opportunity.
And Mike Pettyjohn is the division engineer of 11, and you have, I think, 8 counties. Now I want to switch to the rest area right here, just probably 3 miles from where we sit. It's just a state of the art. I remember some folks involved early on, and the money was, I think, funded by the state, and then the county has a responsibility of mandating. Tell us about that rest area, Travis.
Well, the Wilkes County rest area is located in between, it's on the northbound lane of 421, and the 2 closest intersections will be NC 115 and Brushy Mountain Road. So It's located in between that. It's an interesting rest area that was completed in 2009, and one of the most interesting features of the rest area is it's LEED Gold certified. LEED Gold is the standard for green building. It acknowledges people's efforts to reduce their impacts to the environment and to reduce energy consumption.
Economic impact.
Economic and
that's
environment.
That's what we're talking about. Okay.
Environmental, yes, sir.
All right. Can you just go through, I have a list in here now. You said green. Tell us about that concept.
Green is a broad term, but in general, green would be a term that addresses stewardship of the environment.
Stewardship.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
We don't. We're concerned with pollution. We want to reduce, minimize, mitigate, and try ultimately to eliminate negative impacts to the environment.
Wow.
We want to reduce that carbon footprint.
Carbon footprint, that's another big one.
Yes, sir.
Right. All right, let's talk about recycling water runoff. How does, just in the layman's terms that our folks could understand it, what does that mean?
Well, we do that through many, I guess several different ways at Wilkes. We have BMPs, stormwater detention basins that capture runoff from the parking lot. One of the negative things about having an impermeable surface like a parking lot, vehicles carrying oils and dirt, fuel, and those things, whenever it rains, you have runoff, they're going to fall onto that pavement and they'll be picked up the next time we have a storm event. We use stormwater basins. We also use drop inlets and a piping system that carry it to the basin. Inside of the basin, we have native plants and some selected plants.
That will clean the water?
Basically, they're filtering the water. Yep. Through
Wow.
ultraviolet light and some of the processes of the plants, it takes those toxins, and most of them are broken down and basically eliminated. And it's in between, the basin itself is in between what's the point of contamination and what's the outlet into our water system. So we want to capture it and treat it prior to it entering the water system.
Okay. Solar panels.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about that.
I have solar panels on the roof of the Wilkes Rest area. Obviously, there are two kinds of cells, photovoltaic, and then others that we use for heat. The ones at Wilkes Rest area are used as photovoltaic systems, and they contribute energy back into the rest area.
So we save on power bills.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. Less demand on the grid, and move towards self-sustainability.
Geothermal wells.
Yes, sir. Another interesting aspect. A geothermal well is, in my elementary understanding, is a deep hole, and we run a conduit into that hole, and it makes a cycle or a circle, a full circuit. And we pump fluid through that, and because the ground is a constant or near constant temperature at a certain depth below the surface, we use that to buffer temperatures inside of the building itself, whether it be 30 degrees outside or it be 90 degrees outside. The temperature of the water that's coming back into the building from that pipe system is approximately 55 degrees.
Wow. You said something about U.S. Canadian specifications or something. What was that about?
I think the LEED certification it's not just an American certification, but it's a certification North America and even globally it's accepted. So we share some of those ideals for green building and criteria to reach that certification.
So we're just an environmental initiative or test about doing things that we can contribute to lessening the economic impact. And so that do you monitor those things, I guess? Or is it
some of it's
indicators?
monitored, some of it's dynamic and needs to be monitored, and some of it I would consider a static system where we're not checking it daily, but maybe we check it periodically every 6 months or
Yeah.
annually to make sure it's performing the way that it needs to.
You also have responsibility with Wildflowers.
Yes, sir.
And just go there if you will.
Sure. The department's Wildflower program is one of our most popular programs. It was started in 1985 and consisted of 12 acres. And it has grown now, I think, roughly, right now we're around 1,500 acres statewide.
Statewide, 1,500 acres.
1,500 acres statewide. It's a pretty broad program, and there's some smaller sub-programs underneath it that I'll get into in a minute.
Okay.
In Division 11, we plant approximately 70 acres of wildflowers. We have, I guess I should say, we have 14 divisions in DOT, and Division 11 is one of those. So we have approximately 70 acres of wildflowers that are managed by one of my favorite employees, Chris Southard.
Yeah.
Chris is a great guy. Of those 70 acres, 15 to 20 are in daylily beds, so that we get
Daylily?
Yes.
Okay.
We reduce tillage. Daylilies, the perennial flowers, we reduce the opportunity for erosion and having to continually work the ground. And it also reduces labor input to some degree.
Okay. Now, if I'm I think that exit 93 over on 77, is that Daylily there at
Yes, sir.
Shelton's?
That's correct. It's a daylily bed, and that is one of our better daylily beds. It recently was awarded second place in the state by the North Carolina Garden Club. So we're proud of that bed, and we hold that up as a standard and try to get our other beds to perform to similar level.
So about this competition, if you will, district against district, how is it judged? Or just give us a little idea of talking about if that was second place. How does that work, Travis?
Well, throughout the year, we have different people go out and take photos of our beds, state employees. We want to monitor our progress and how we're doing, and we try to maintain bloom times throughout the year, whether it be summer or fall, some that we have bloom in the spring. And so as those come into bloom, as they're peaking, we go out and we take pictures, and we submit those pictures to our central unit. And they have several categories. Daylily is one. We have a regional category. We have some other categories as well. But we take those pictures and we sort through them. We say, what are our best ones? And we submit those to the central unit, and they take them to the Garden Club, North Carolina Garden Club, where they're judged, blind judging.
Right.
And that's the process. And of course, there are bragging rights that go along with winning an award. You have to elbow our neighbors in Division 9 or 12 from time to time.
Yeah.
Sometimes they
bragging
elbow me.
rights.
Yes, sir.
Good for you. Now let's go back to Chris. What is this? You have hold him in such high regard. Just tell us about Chris Southern.
Chris is a Technician 1. That's his designation or his title at the department. And he works out of my Elkin satellite office.
Is he a young guy?
Chris is probably mid-40s,
Okay,
early 40s.
all right.
And he's a dedicated state employee. He takes pride in his work. He takes time to research what he is doing, and he cares about the outcome of his product or his service. In general, Chris manages the Wildflower program almost by himself. So of those 70 acres that we maintain in rotation, he's running from point A to point B, making sure proper maintenance is done, whether it needs herbicide or it needs to be planted, or we have a flower bed that's past its peak and needs to transition to a planting cycle. Chris is responsible for that. So
does he have some helpers?
we provide, and I've made available to Chris help as he needs it, or as he asks.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times in the year with seasonal crop, seasonal growth period, where we have to provide some assistance. But from my perspective, it's minimal. Yes, sir.
Travis, Chrisawn, you spoke to me about most of the seed for these flowers comes from California. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. It's basically just a matter of available area and supply. The seed source for flowers, and we have made available to us through the state, through our Wildflower program, 32 varieties.
32?
There are 32 made available, and some of them overlap. We have several varieties of zinnias, per se, or for example. But the source of the seed comes, in general, from the west side of the country. And depending on what was their climate and their environment, their growing season, that will impact what's made available to us the following year. So we have those 32 varieties on a sheet of paper, and there may be ideal years where they're all available, but typically that's reduced somewhat. Or if I were to ask for 100 pounds, we may only receive 50 pounds. But just a product of Mother Nature. You put in your best effort, and if weather cooperates, you get a good result, and if it doesn't, it can be challenging.
So you have designated equipment too. I think you said tractors and machinery that go into these beds. And what is just the process, say in the spring? What will he do first? What will Chris do first? And just tell me how it works to plant a bed.
Okay. The beginning process, if we started at a new site, would be site selection.
Okay.
Site
selection.
That would be and it is very important. What's the exposure of the site? What's the soil type? What's the surrounding foliage? Does it get enough sunlight? What are the drainage conditions? And so Chris and I do have some input on that as well as others, but I trust his judgment. He knows what he's doing. We go in, we may consider 3 or 4 alternatives and try to pick the one that we feel is going to produce the best product. And from that point, we would go in and try to remove the weedy vegetation from that area and grasses in preparation for planting. Again, that's time dependent. What time of year is it? What is it that we intend to plant?
So there's a lot of judgment and a lot of management. We just see the end result, but there's so much more goes into it.
Yes, sir. It requires constant management, and it requires a thorough understanding of what are the impacts and what do we need to do as a result.
Wow. Poppies is another one. And
Yes,
you
sir.
do that, there's a veterans initiative, I think.
Yes, sir. There is an association to the veterans. Red poppies, California poppies, Flanders poppies. There's an association with the American Legion, and we plant that as part of our wildflower program, and it gets a lot of positive comments. They're very easy to pick out from the side of the road, and they're aesthetically pleasing. But going back several years, the poppy was recognized, and probably from Flanders Fields,
Yes.
as having an association to World War I and the servicemen and women that lost their lives during World War I. So we're proud to provide that, and we're proud that it's commemorated in that way.
You guys are also involved in designs of rolling up and down and just some very creative. I just am so interested now that I know about how much involved the background involvement, if you will. I watch the different things you do. So is this kind of something Chris picks up on his own, or?
Yes, sir. He deserves all the credit for that. He has liberty to, whether it be just a rectangular shape or a shape dictated by the area he's working in, he has liberty to go in and plant as he sees fit, or to design the bed as he sees fit. So that we have areas like our daylily beds where when they're in bloom, you have one solid color and usually, typically a geometric design or a design dictated by the layout of the site. We also have other areas where he'll mix varieties of flowers.
Mix them.
Or incorporate a non-symmetrical shape, sometimes a wavy pattern, or bands that provide contrast to the people driving down the road so that it catches their eye and provides a nice view.
Okay. Chris is with the Roadside Environmental Division, and he's involved in flowers and rest areas. You spoke of a part of it that most of us would never imagine about the weed control.
Yes, sir.
And you're also about litter control and all the things that Chris does in that area. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, the knowledge is required when it comes to weed control, particularly in our wildflower beds. Some varieties of flowers may be tolerant of a certain herbicide and others may not. And it would depend on, are you planting a single variety or multiple varieties? And it would also depend on what type of weed may be in that bed or proliferating nearby. And so it's very important whenever we go out to make an herbicide application in the wildflower beds that we select the correct herbicide to use. That way we don't damage the crop or have an environmental concern where maybe we're killing a non-target vegetation. We certainly don't want to damage the trees or the grass or the turf nearby. So we try to be conscious of that.
Travis, tell us about the bees. I just thought there's such an interesting part of how you've partnered with state associations, and this is just so important.
Yes, sir. Our pollinator program is a subset of the Wildflower program, and specifically the one that gets the most attention will be our sunflowers. And sunflowers are an interesting flower. Typically prefer eastern exposure, so we try to find sites that face to the east.
Face to the east on the sunflowers.
That's correct. In general, any of our wildflowers, flowering plants are going to attract small mammals, hummingbirds, different insects, bees, honeybees are a big consideration. And agriculture in North Carolina is a big consideration. It's a $78 billion industry. And so our roadsides, while we are providing something that's aesthetically pleasing, it's also in turn providing another benefit that's helping our agricultural industry, our corn producers, soybean producers, cucumbers, watermelons, things of that nature.
Well, goodness. Stewards of the environment. I love that. Behind all of the things we do is that we want to make it better than it is, to go forward, to be a steward. That's a great word. Go there for just a second, if you will, or a minute, Travis.
Sure. Well, a steward of the environment is someone that takes accountability and responsibility for the environment in which we live. And for roadside environmental, it would be the outside environment, our natural environment. We're blessed to live in an area, where we have beautiful fall foliage and rumbling creeks and bubbling creeks and the New River, the Yadkin River, the Mitchell River. It's important that we take time to consider how do our actions impact that environment and the animals that live in that environment, the plants that live in that environment, and realize that we can have a positive impact or a negative impact, and we want to direct our attention towards having a positive impact.
And there's a new plaque going to be dedicated on Main Street in Mount Airy and a garden club. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. I'm excited. I'm excited to be a part of the Blue Star Memorial Program, our roadside environmental unit, our central unit, and Derek Smith in Raleigh. They oversee the Blue Star Memorial Program for NCDOT. And the Blue Star Memorial Program is a program where we go in, select sites, and place a commemorative marker in honor of armed forces and those that have served for the country. I think we have approximately 40 sites in North Carolina, and there will be a new site at Lowry Park in Mount Airy in the near future. I expect a dedication service in the near future.
Wow.
So it's a great thing when we can honor those that serve and defend our freedom and our interests. I'm proud to be a part of that.
Me too. I want to thank Wilkes Communications and RiverStreet Productions for having you as our featured guest today. And what an educational, you just go at the things that really matter. And so we've learned so much from you today, and I thank you for RiverStreet Productions and WIFM and the opportunity that I have to be here. I'm so grateful that in my life that this could happen. So kind of wind down, if you will, about, I know that you love what you do, Travis, Chrisawn, and just tell us that as we end.
Yes, sir. I'm pleased. I'm blessed to live and work in the community that I care about, to have a job that aligns with my personal interests, and to work with a group of people that care about what they do, that want to provide a service for the public. And I hope and I believe that we represent DOT in a positive light.
And you are a great steward. And I think that from now on, when we see the beauty, and tell Chris how much we admire the great work that he does. And I hope you'll come back and do this again as you give and share and care and make a difference in the lives of others.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.